So India's latest trade report card just dropped. And on the surface, the numbers look pretty solid. But when you dig a little deeper, you find this fascinating tale of two completely different economies at work. So let's get into it and break it all down.
Hey everyone, and welcome to India Explained. This is the channel where we take anything and everything and, well, explain it simply. And hey, if you like what we do here, do us a huge favor and hit that subscribe and like button. It really helps us out.
Okay, so the numbers are in for the first part of the year, and it's time to grade India's trade performance. The big question is, what's the final grade? Let's find out.
All right, let's start with the big flashy number, $576 billion. That is the total value of goods and services India traded with the world in just the first 6 months of 2024. I mean, that's a massive figure, right? It really shows you just how plugged into the global economy India is. But is it a good number? How does it all balance out?
Now, when you first look at the breakdown, everything seems pretty solid. Both exports and imports are growing, which is usually a sign of a healthy, active economy. But you gotta look closer. See those decimal points? Imports are growing just a tiny bit faster than exports. And that tiny difference, well, that's the whole ballgame. It's what's making the trade gap wider, and it really sets up the main drama of this entire report.
Okay, let's kick things off with the good news, the A+ student on this report card, if you will. We're talking about India's services sector. Seriously, this thing is an absolute superpower, and it's the engine driving so much of the growth.
I mean, just take a look at this. A whopping 10% growth year on year for services exports. That's double digits. It hit almost $90 billion in just one quarter. This isn't just regular growth, folks. This is an economic engine that is absolutely firing on all cylinders.
So you might be asking, where is all this power coming from? Well, it's mainly two huge areas. First, India now handles over 10% of the entire planet's IT services exports. Let that sink in. And then there's other business services, stuff like consulting, R&D, tech support, that's just as big. Basically, India started as the world's back office, but now it's becoming its brain trust.
And listen, this isn't some flash in the pan. This has been building for a while. Since 2005, India has more than doubled its slice of the global services pie. That's not just a trend, that's a deep structural shift. It really cements India's place as a true services superpower, no question.
Okay, but remember what I said, a tale of two economies. The services boom is just one side of the coin. On the flip side of this report card, a warning light is flashing, and that's the growing, and I mean growing, gap in the trade of physical goods.
Yeah, when you look at merchandise, actual stuff you can touch, the picture is the complete opposite of services. Get this, in just 3 months, India brought in $63 billion more in goods than it sold. That's a huge deficit, and it's basically eating away at all the hard-earned surplus from the services sector. It's like taking one step forward and one step back.
And this isn't spread out evenly. The pain is really focused on some key sectors. Take iron and steel, for example. Exports just fell off a cliff, plunging by a third. And why? Well, it's a direct hit from a global glut of supply, mostly coming out of China, which is flooding the market with cheap steel, making it incredibly difficult for Indian companies to compete.
So this leads us to a really interesting part of this whole story. India's export mix isn't set in stone, it's constantly changing, right? You've got some rising stars and some old champions that are fading, all while playing in a super competitive global arena.
Okay, to really get what's happening here, we need to quickly talk about a concept called revealed comparative advantage, or RCA. Don't worry, it's simple. Just think of it like a country's specialty, its signature dish, if you will. If a country exports way more of something than the world average, it has a high RCA score. A score over 1 means, hey, you're pretty good at this.
So if we look through that RCA lens, you can see this big shift happening. The old-school powerhouses for India, things like natural pearls and leather goods, they're losing their global mojo. But in their place, new contenders are stepping up. Things like ceramic products and electrical machinery are starting to gain some real momentum. It's a slow pivot for sure, but a really important one toward more advanced manufacturing.
But, and this is a big but, that pivot is running straight into a brick wall named competition. Just look at the numbers. In a critical area like electrical machinery, India's share of the global market is under 1%. China's, 26%. That just puts it in stark perspective, right? It shows you the sheer size of the mountain India has to climb to really become a manufacturing giant.
All right, so India's trade story isn't just about what's happening inside the country. Not at all. It's being pushed and pulled by these huge forces out on the global chessboard. We've got to talk about these major headwinds.
So, the report basically flags three big risks. First, you've got the ongoing trade tensions between the US and China, which creates chaos and uncertainty for everyone. Second, there's instability in West Asia, which is a huge threat to critical shipping lanes. And third, and this is a new one, there's a major policy wall going up in Europe.
And that policy is what's called the EU's Carbon Border Tax, or CBAM for short. The idea is to tax imports based on how much carbon was emitted to make them. For India, this is a direct hit to its iron, steel, and aluminum exports. We're talking about a potential 20 to 35% price hike on these goods. Ouch. That could seriously hurt their ability to compete.
So, faced with all this, India isn't just sitting back and watching. The government is making some countermoves. They're doing things like refunding taxes on exports to make them cheaper, allowing companies to import machinery duty-free to boost their manufacturing game. And they've even launched a digital platform to help smaller businesses get their products out to the world. And all of this brings us right back to the central question, the big dilemma, really. You've got this incredible world-class services economy on one side, and on the other, a manufacturing sector that's fighting tooth and nail but is up against some serious challenges. So which of these two stories is going to define India's future on the world stage?
It's a huge question, right? Should India just double down on what it does best, services, and become the undisputed global champion there? Or should it go all in on the tough, competitive fight to close that manufacturing gap? I'd love to know what you think. Let us know down in the comments. And hey, don't forget to check out our other explainers right here on the India Explained channel. Thanks for watching.